Thing about Standard 3, the critical part for A through D is that there is structure and there is a process. I know a lot of times we don't know that, but it is documented, whether it's human resources, facilities, or IT. We have to have a process in place. I had the benefit to read most of Pierce and Valley's accreditation study, and I think ours is really good. Really good. Theirs is good, but I think ours is really good. Our website is the easiest to navigate for accreditation purposes, and the Commission has already acknowledged that. So that's what we want to keep in mind. But none of this occurs without the appropriate planning, especially for the fiscal implications. So I'll have Leslie kind of talk about the big picture overview as to what happens here on campus. Then I'm going to step back as to what's going on the big picture.
One of the things that you can see, this is a very big standard, and it talks about the allocation of resources. And in our report, I think it should be very obvious that we're doing a really good job. We have very few actionable action plans for this particular standard. So we have really good processes in place, and what the Accreditation Commission is going to look at is how we are linking these resources to planning, and that's what we're really trying very hard to illustrate, and I think we've done a good job with that. The challenge is to make sure that everyone knows what our process is, and as you've heard the different presenters, it feels like it's very cumbersome and complicated because of all of this planning, but it really isn't. And so we want to talk about, you've heard several times people talking about program review. So all of our allocation of resources, whether it's human resources, financial, technology, or fiscal, really goes through the same planning cycle. And if you go to the budget and planning website, and one of the things that Dr. Perez had suggested is that we briefly go over our budget and planning process. Because if you get asked by someone that's visiting us in a couple weeks, it won't look really good if we still don't know what our process is. And so if you get a chance, and if you go to the budget and planning site, and you can look at our planning process, it's a step-by-step process of how we allocate funding. And it's really based on timelines that we get from the district. So the timelines that you see on the completion date on the right change very slightly every year, but because it's really based on sometime in March, early March, second week of March, when we have to have everything finalized for the district. And from that date, and Francis is really good at keeping us on task with that, we backtrack into the fall semester so that we make sure that all of our program reviews are done at a certain time. All the allocations, and we want to illustrate that we allocate through planning. It's budget and planning, and so that we're not making willy-nilly decisions about how we're allocating resources, that we have a plan in place and we adhere to that plan. And it really is based on the program review process. Every department, every unit on campus, any program on campus that receives funding, Program 100 funding, utilizes and goes through a program review process. And that process is yearly. It's an evaluation. So every year, the directors or the department chair, whoever's in charge of that unit, does an evaluation. That's our program review. And most of you in here are probably familiar with that. And what you're doing is you're evaluating your past year. Did you achieve the objectives that you set for yourself? Is there something that you're trying to plan out? You want to start some kind of a new program, or you want to start new classes? And if you do, what kinds of things will you need to do that? You might need some financial resources. You might need another facility, et cetera, et cetera. I might need a new faculty member. So whether we're hiring, whether it's faculty hiring, administrative hiring, whether we're asking for any kind of a resource, it is done through this program review process. So the department directors or department chairs are spelling that out. And that goes, HON, for example, because it's an online system, will then pull out all of the requests that you're making for human resources, technology, et cetera. And it's very clear those requests go through their respective divisions, whether it's academic affairs, student services, admin services. And the directors, the VPs of those programs with their respective committees then go through all of the requests that are included in program review, and they're going to prioritize. If I'm the VP of Admin Services then, I'm going to look at all the program reviews, I'm going to see what people want and need for the coming year, and we're going to prioritize them. Those prioritizations go to the Budget and Planning Committee, and that task is a difficult one because then the Budget and Planning Committee has to look at all of the requests coming from the divisions, and based on our objective for the year, and for the last couple years since we haven't had any money, we're really looking at things that are just going to keep us going, that are going to keep stability and sustainability. And we rank from there, and we go to College Council. This is what we recommend, and ultimately Dr. Perez makes the decision. But we really are trying to show that we are linking our resource allocation to planning, and I think we're doing it. This process has been in place now for 3 or 4 years. We've actually gone through a full cycle. This is our 3rd time. So it's catching on, and we just want to make sure that everyone understands that process.
The critical thing for accreditation in standard 3D is really know that there is a process in place and how we utilize our money. The district gives us a set amount of dollars based on FTES. We then have to apply that money to meet our FTS goals, and through program review prioritize. You know, are we going to purchase this, or are we not going to do that? And that's the critical component that everybody here has an opportunity through the program review to work with their department, division, to get that into your program review. And like Leslie described it, it's on the calendar, and it all rolls up to what our budget looks like. And that's the critical component for Standard 3D. If you look at Standard 3D in the accreditation report, it has a lot of charts and graphs, which are great, and you really, hopefully you can memorize them all when you do talk to the accreditation team, but there's a process in place. That's why a lot of times I say no. Because you have to go back to that process. Was it included in the process? Was it vetted through appropriately? And if it wasn't, then it gets kicked out. So we have to be mindful of the process that we have in place. Did you want to?
Yeah, I'm done with this part. What do you want to do?
Now, for Standard 3D, and Francis is the only person that cannot answer this. How much is our budget this year? Say that again? About 26.5 million. It's our budget this year. Now, when you look at our Standard 3D, that's illustrated really nice. You see that we've been fiscally solvent the last 5 years, and that is really huge. That's great. But the Accreditation Commission is not going to be looking at that. So since the accreditation report has been completed, I've got a whole new list of financial information that they want about the district. Because when you look at our accreditation report, does it tell you if we're going to meet payroll or not? It really doesn't, because there's a difference between cash and budget. There's no cash behind budget. A budget, you just build it around your anticipated expenditures, but you don't know if you're going to have the cash to meet those obligations. The Accreditation Commission is really asking right now, they want to know what our cash position. So when you get on your iPhone when you're at the mall to see how much money you have, if you can make that purchase or if it's wise, that's what they're interested in. While the budgets are great, they really want to know. So last week they sent me a list of about 35 things that they want that I'm working for district to get, just so they know if we're solvent or not. So Standard 3D is going to be interesting. I know I have my work cut out for me, and I'm learning a lot more about district finances than I ever knew. It is probably the one, I don't know if anybody knows or not, but the Accreditation Commission is coming to the district in June specifically just to focus on 3D. That's it. So they have a whole team of 12 people that are going to be at district just focusing on Standard 3D. That's how critical it is, because that's the one that gets you into trouble the most. Pat can talk about San Francisco and Compton. You lose accreditation, the quickest way to lose accreditation is Standard 3D. There's no quicker path to lose accreditation or get put on probation or show cause than Standard 3D, so that's how critical it is. Any questions? Yes. FTES? FTE is full-time equivalent students? No. I'm sorry, I may have said it wrong.
Something that I was wondering about is like when there are requests that go in through the system, that go through program review and other parts. You mentioned about the process. Is there a provision for communicating back where those requests that would be in program review are and how they are navigating the process?
Well, typically we vote on them and then they're ranked.
Yeah, but you've hit our weakness. For the last 3 years, since we've had no money, not too many people got money, so we didn't really feel like, there was not a big list. But right. That is our weak point. What's supposed to happen is that budget and planning, when we take our recommendations to the president and the president makes the final decision, it should be coming, the budget and planning, and it's now in place, we'll be sending out to all the program directors, or we've done it actually the last couple years. This is the list from 1 to 15 of what we have funded for this year.
Right.
Yeah.
And then for things that haven't been funded or have been sort of requested, is there like a way to see? I mean, I understand, there's no budget,
Yeah.
So, but just in general, like the feedback from making a request to actually seeing what the standard is for the person or department or whatever that made the request, to kind of close that loop.
Yeah, I think what you're asking is, first of all, they don't carry over. So if I requested something, for example, through my program review, and it didn't get funded for this coming year, it doesn't stay on the list. So because we do program review every year, it might be, I might have changed my mind and gone another direction, who needs the money, and so I didn't request it again. So it needs to go through that cycle every year. If it didn't get funded, and by the way, the Budget and Planning Committee, if we can't fund it through Program 100, the Budget and Planning Committee does have knowledge and the information from all funding sources on campus. Because we have grants, we have CTE, we have other funding sources that we can make recommendations. We don't have the money in Program 100. We would like to recommend that this gets funded through whatever. So we can make that recommendation too.
So then there's a handoff between like Program 100 and other like specially funded sources.
Yeah, yes, and one of the things that we're trying to get away from, and we've actually done a good job, is that in the past, we had people just going to all different groups. Right. Can you fund me? Can you fund me? And it was chaotic. So now it all funnels through budget and planning. When you're a requester, you shouldn't be asking. You should not be concerned where that money's coming from. This is my need. This is what I'd like. My objective. And it's budget and planning's job then to find that funding for you. It's either Program 100. We might recommend that, find out if CTE could possibly fund it. Find out if a grant can fund it. Find out if the bond program can fund it. So the initiator of the program review does not make that call. There is a spot in program review as I'm filling mine out for my department. There's a little question there. What funding is possible for this? And I may fill that out if I have an idea.
Okay, so I mean this is the last question, but so when the request goes in and there are possible funding sources, and of course there's no budget. Is there like a method of providing feedback to the original funding part? I mean, how do you look at that? Is there something in the website, or is it something that the chain of command, like passes back? Or how does that happen?
It should be chain of command. So I'll give you an example. Let's say Wally, in his program reviewed, wanted to order a rotor tiller. So he can turn dirt, have Victor out there turning dirt all the time. He's got to put it in his program review, and then we're going to do and rank it. Now, if it doesn't get funded through 10-100, then Wally doesn't have a rotor tiller for next year. So then it's up to me as his VP to communicate for this fiscal year, you're not getting a rotor tiller. However, that doesn't preclude that if a green environmental grant comes along, that we have our monies, that I can't go back and say, Wally, guess what? You got a rotor tiller, And then we also look at it, is it one-time or is it continuous funding? So, obviously the purchase of a rotor tiller is a one-time funding, then you have to factor gas. However, if Wally wants to hire 10 electricians, then you look at that and you treat that differently.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you. We'd like to thank everybody for coming. As stated before, the videos will be available as well as the PowerPoint online. And just a reminder to all faculty that we will be sending out early next week the link for the video and the PowerPoint presentation to show to your students. There was a quick question how long the video was for the classroom presentations. It's going to be just under 5 minutes. And the PowerPoint, as quickly as you walk through it,